everyone. Welcome to the new phase of Recovery Talks. In studio, we have Lee Johnson, our CEO of Myrina, and we have our executive assistant, Emre, and a guest, a friend, a colleague, and a partner in crime, you can say. We have Lal H. Willard, better known as Coach B. Welcome, Coach. And Bilal is a husband, a proud father of 7. Dude, you were dizzy. And
Shit, man. At least I thought I was a seed splitter.
published author and speaker and emotional regulation specialist. And he's very dedicated to help people turn their life experience to a lasting change to better their lives. And also he won the 2026 Peer O Award. Oh my goodness. Congratulations. Here we go. Well, I like that. I really like that, future.
This is already fun.
I know. So he's an expert in reentry and family reunification, which I believe it's a very, very important part of healing from your life. And currently he serves with the Washington State Department of Corrections, and he sits on the World Recovery Network Peer Reentry Advisory Council. He is helping the future of peer support and successful reentry. He's certified as a national anger management person, and he is with the Association of NAMA. And he has a couple of books. One of them is We Are What We Agree To, and the 4 Cycles of Freedom, Coach B's 4 Cycles of Freedom. Co-host of the Pi Talk podcast and founder of the nonprofit Pursue It 365. Oh my goodness, you're like me, okay? I mean, we're workaholics, okay? So, but as I would like to remind everyone, we're here not with our professional titles, but we're here as our recovering individuals. So let's get to it. We have a special feature this time with our new face of Recovery Talks. My assistant, Emre Diktas, please bring out the wheel. Let's see what we're going to talk about today.
Okay, so I'm just gonna do some introductions first, like introduce this new segment that we call the recovery role. Normally we would just pick up a topic for each and every episode of Recovery Talks, and everyone will just start talking about it. But this time, we just want to spice things up and just turn the wheel and see what number we get and come up with questions. So let me just start this.
Woo!
Okay, you guys ready?
Yep,
Let's go.
for it.
So it is 8.
Number 8.
Number 8.
Yeah, let's see what's the 8th question is. What does hope looks like? So should we say ladies first, or someone wants to take the bullet?
Fuck that. We did that last time.
Okay.
You go
Well,
for it.
looks like
You
you
go for it.
volunteer, Lee.
Hope? Yeah, that's fine. Hope. So, what does hope look like? Like, hope looks like looking forward to tomorrow, right? Constantly, just always. So, like, tomorrow is going to bring something new. Tomorrow is going to bring something fresh. I don't have to bring yesterday into tomorrow. I can if I really, like, don't pay any attention to myself. I can bring yesterday into tomorrow and ruin all my hope that I have that tomorrow is going to be a good day. Or I can just kind of take a step back from it, take a deep breath, and look out the window and say, yep, tomorrow's going to be better. And let tomorrow be what tomorrow is and accept that. I mean, it's one of the things that I talk about a lot is like living in acceptance instead of expectance. If you expect something from tomorrow, then you're going to fail at it. But if you accept what comes tomorrow, then it's all like success. That's what I say hope looks like.
Okay, good start. All right, I'm gonna go with the gentleman here, Coach B. What hope looks like for you?
For me, hope looks like the embodiment of the attitude of gratitude, right? When I can live in gratitude, I'm no longer living in that expectant entitlement, lens of a worldview. I'm just appreciative of the things that I have now. And so what hope looks like for me is the more time I can spend in that space creates hope for all of my relationships, all of my engagements. It creates hope for my opportunities because I know that when I live in gratitude, I'm not coveting what anybody else wants. I'm not jealous of anybody. I'm not taking anything personal. I'm not counting anybody else's bank account or, their status in life. I'm just happy to be where I am. I'm happy to be, in the present time, the gift of life. And so when I can wake up and not feel like I'm missing out on something, then I'm hopeful.
It takes a lot of work, though, doesn't it? I mean, it really does take a lot of work. Emre, what about you? What does hope look like for you?
Well, if I compare my recovery, like with you guys, I would call myself a newbie because I've been in recovery for 2 years. But I remember the times that I don't have anything to hope for or any thing that I would love to achieve in my life. But now, even just spending some time with my family and my dog and just sitting on a beach, like touching the grass, the wind, and feeling that is just and waking up with like I don't even think about what's gonna come next. And like Lee said, and that wise man taught me a lot about hope. So I stopped looking for the things that I used to look for, and now instead I'm just trying to live the day and be grateful for the things or the experiences that I have. So yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be as meaningful or deepful as you guys' answers are, but I really like experiencing that hope and the littlest, tiniest things that happens in my life on daily basis. So yeah, that's what hope is for me, you know.
Well, that reminds me of what somebody told me in the rooms when I was just a newbie, a year into my recovery. I accidentally stumbled up on an old timers meeting, and that was the only meeting that I could go during my lunch break when I was working at the rehab center in New Jersey. And I felt so small in that meeting, because all of them were giants, right? And I sat next to this wonderful gentleman, and I said, I think I'm in the wrong place because, you guys are just way out there, right? But I said, this is the only meeting that I can come to. And he says, well, I think you're in the right place. Don't worry about it. There's no difference because we all go by 24 hours a day anyway, So that was something that he gave me that was so valuable, right? We all live in the 24 hours that we live. And then um, I I found something that was really different in the quality of that meeting, right? It was a 12-step group, but the quality of the meeting wasn't about, oh, I was young and I did that shit and I did that and I did that and I did that and I feel horrible. Now my hand goes to the drink, my mind goes to drugging again, yada, yada, yada. Because I had this notion, of long-term recovering people. they were all so bloody miserable in most of the rooms that I was in, right? And all they talked about the negative stuff and how they tackled it and just act like superiors to other people, because they've been in the rooms longer. And I said, if I'm going to end up after 5 years or 3 years or 30 years, I don't give a crap, right? If I'm going to end up like you guys, right? Miserable in my life, I don't want any part of this, right? I mean, I don't want recovery like this because I know I'm going to be miserable and that's not me. So anyway, weirdly, I said this to that gentleman there, and it was really interesting. He turned around to me and said, who would want to be miserable in recovery? And me being in that long timing meeting with all of those long-term recovering people gave me hope in my recovery. Because they were laughing, they were enjoying life, they were talking about life. They weren't talking about, oh, I was a young and I drank, I did that, or I placed a bet, yada, yada. They weren't doing that. They were talking about their daily lives, and in newcomers meetings, you don't see that very often. So, and I said, yeah, this is what I need after a year in, right? And after a battle of 1 year, trying to stay in my recovery, I think this is what I need. I need to enjoy life. I need to hope for tomorrow. I need to be able to build, plan, and pursue, right? And while I'm doing it, I need to be able to have fun doing it. Because, I mean, granted, guys, who would want to be in recovery if we're going to be miserable son of a bitches? I don't know. Would you, Coach B? I mean, if you're going to be miserable, would you be in recovery?
No, I was already miserable before it, so it wouldn't be an upgrade or a evolution or a transition if I'm just going from misery to misery. Absolutely.
I know.
Like choose which miserable way you want to live, and I'm just like,
I know.
Is there an option 3? Is there a third option? I'll take that.
Yeah. So in my recovery, hope is exactly that, enjoying life, moving forward, growing, and evolving in my recovery. That's what hope is for me. Okay, so you opened the door, Coach B. How bad was it? Where was hope in your active using? Because I remember it was in a very bad place.
My active using was also tied to gang involvement and the social norms that came with that. So the indoctrination, the behavior, the drugs, it was all a part of the same organism, the way in my culture, right? So it's like if you were in the game, you likely did one or all 5 drugs that were, going around. You likely sold, you likely were disrespectful to women. I'm talking from the male perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
You were likely, carrying a weapon. If you had any type of respect or, place in the neighborhood or in the politics, then you were likely violent, you could fight and were willing to, and things like that. And so for me, I didn't have even a concept of hope because I had accepted that my reality was death in the streets or life in prison. And so having accepted that, I had basically essentially, ceased to exist in life. I was just doing the thing until one of those 2 results happened. And so hope for me, it was all bad. Like it was all bad. Everything, there was lots and lots of days in a row that could have been very authentically identified in that moment as the worst day than I've ever experienced. And so there were a lot of times where, I was fighting my own nature, which I've said before, but I think it's really important to speak about this when you talk about what's worse. I grew up a super sensitive kid. I love animals, love nature, good to my siblings, kind of a mama's boy, right? My dad wasn't around. And in order to survive while my mom was working 3 jobs to take care of boys, and in order to be unsupervised and in the communities, I had to adapt, meaning the first fight that I ever fought and won, I also lost because that fight was with my own kind nature, and I had to defeat my kind nature. I had to defeat my compassionate self and lock him up, right, in order to exist in the kids in the neighborhood, the gang, the brotherhood, in order to be accepted as part of the family. And in my mind, like, I can't run around these streets in these neighborhood with my mom at work unless I'm willing to engage the way that they're engaging. Otherwise, I'll just be a victim or stuck in the house hiding from. So, part of that decision was like, okay, either, dog eat dog, right? Either I'm in or I'm a victim. So I became indoctrinated in whatever the rules were of the streets. And again, that all becomes part of the whole organism. The using the drugs at a young age, stealing Mad Dog 2020s out of 7-Elevens when we were like 13, 14 years old, smoking our mom's cigarettes, doing the beer runs out of Safeways and stuff like that. That was all against my nature the entire time. I
Mhm.
didn't enjoy or want to be doing those things, but I also feared the alternative, which was being the guy that got jumped by 3 or 4 guys wearing whatever color because I was by myself and I didn't have a crew, or, my older brother, I got locked up early on. So, and my father wasn't around. So my protection came from wherever I could find it. It happened to be, in the local gangs that were around. So, and then being in prison from 18, um, I went to prison at 16 to Clallam Bay. It was called YOP, for youth offender program. And then I got out. I was 17, and then I got incarcerated again for an 11-year sentence without any victims. There was nobody shot, hurt, harmed, and somehow they stacked these charges. So, I went to Walla Walla at 18 years old, 165 pounds, and scared to death. So when you talk about, how bad was it, I did 9.5 years on an 11-year sentence, because there were gun enhancements involved in that, which you don't get so you don't get the full third off. And I had to learn emotional regulation. I had to unpack my trauma. That's when I started like studying psychology for myself, not for a degree.
Mhm.
Because for me, being 18, I had a new baby. I was freshly married in the county. Understanding that to an 18-year-old, that 11-year sentence might as well have been life. So I could only see me being incarcerated. I couldn't see past that incarceration, especially in those earlier times. It was like, who am I in here? And how can I be, the safest and most comfortable and not victimized and exist in this space? And that was the bodying of my nature. And when I talk about resilience, that's what I'm talking about. The resilience of my original nature, my compassionate, my soft nature, the little kid who found birds in a bird nest in a field and cried because the next day someone had killed them, right?
Yep.
That's the version of me that I had to get back to. And that's where my resilience lives, because there was still a little bit of a heartbeat left for that person to come back. And that's who I am today, and I'm re-exploring that. I'm a 3.5-year-old adult. Everything's an adventure. Like, things I watch cartoon movies with my kids as if I'm one of them. There's all these things that, my childhood was deprived of, that now I can enjoy vicariously and in real time as a 42-year-old adult with my younger kids. And I think that's another way that I could also go back to that question and describe hope, right? That's what hope looks like to me. Is I have 4 kids that are adults and 3 kids that aren't. And the 3 kids that aren't don't have to go into a prison and visit me. And they don't have to, that's not normal for them. So
Yeah.
being able to witness in real time the breaking of a cycle, I'm actually seeing the benefits of that generational cycle being cut out like a cancer. And so now my older kids get to actually see the evolution, see how their younger siblings are being treated with this version of fatherhood and myself. And, I have grandkids with some of the two of my older daughters now. So it's like those grandkids will never know prison, incarcerated, visiting Papa B. None of that will ever exist for them. And so yeah, there were times it got really bad. I survived some fairly deep things.
Yep. We all have. We all have. How about you, Lee?
But
How bad it was?
how bad was it for me?
Yeah.
Let me see. My worst, I think, being so dead set. So I did two things that were insane. So dead set on winning because I'm a sports addict. Okay, may not look like it now,
All right.
but man, there was a time. But like I played basketball. Really, I played really high level basketball for a really long time, and it wasn't because I was really talented. It was because I worked so hard to get good. Then I refused to lose, and that was my thing. I had to win, and so in one game, I broke my ankle in the first quarter, like the first 5 minutes of the game. Like some dude just hung out in my landing spot, and I landed on his feet and broke my ankle. And I just tied my shoe. I knew it was broken. I heard it when it happened, and I and I refused to go out of the game. Just wouldn't go out. Tied my shoe tighter, kept going, played the whole game. And then when I went to the hospital afterwards, I scored 18 points. It's crazy. I scored 18 points with a broken ankle. But it was like, I look back on it now and I'm like, that was just so crazy. Why would you do that? And it was just that I needed to be there. I needed to be the one who was like winning the game because I knew that if I wasn't there, then the team wasn't winning. It's kind of true. But the other thing was playing a pickup game one time, and I broke a dude's eye socket because I was gonna score that point. And it's a pickup game. It's not a game. It doesn't mean nothing, you know. But those were the things like my willingness to do that, right? To just plow through that dude. It's like my willingness to do that just to score a basket. When I look back on it a long time later, at the time I was like, well, you put your face in the way. What can I say? You know? But when I look back on it later, I'm like, there's that young person in me who stopped playing football because I didn't like hurting people, right? But then there's the older me who was just, you put your face in the way. What can I do about it? And that was that dichotomy between remembering that person who became that person. It's like, where did that happen at? Because I don't even know when that happened. And that was like, when I came to the realization that that's what I was when I was on the court, that's when I stopped playing. I stopped playing for a really long time. And, Jale saw it happen one time when I was coaching. I got bored after in Turkey for a little while, and I started coaching the local village basketball team, little kids playing basketball, teaching them how to play basketball. And some younger guys came from the beach one day, and next thing you know, we're involved in some game, and Jale saw the light switch and was like, "Uh oh, that's crazy." So I know that that's possible, and I just kind of work my way around all of that. I try not to put myself into that situation anymore. So my hope, in the backest of my mind, I think that there's a hope that someday I'll be able to play and not do that. But I don't think it's going to happen.
No.
So I just don't. I don't do any of that anymore. Yeah. And it kind of looks like it.
Yeah. So when was another time that you completely lost the notion of hope?
I don't know. What are you after?
I'm not after anything. I'm just asking.
Yeah, you're after something.
No, I'm not after anything. No.
I know you.
And I can honestly answer that.
Okay. Go for it.
I think one of the most impactful and emotional moments of my life was I had been on bail about 3 years, and this was leading up to my final arrest. And 6 of my kids at the time, they were all living with me. One of my baby's moms were deeply immersed in their addiction, and so there was CPS involvement. All these things were happening, and the case moved from state to federal. And I remember I had went to Vegas for one of my brother's birthday things. We drove, we came back, and I wasn't even home an hour. In the background, I didn't know this till later, but they thought that I had drove down there to pick up something heavy while I was on bail. And so they raided right when I got back, like an hour after I was back. And that's when they, executed the federal warrant, which was originally just a state case. But I said all that to say the moment that ripped my soul from my body was they had strategically called CPS. So while I'm in cuffs in my driveway, I got to witness my kids being literally carried into the car, reaching for me, screaming, crying. And then every time I had a visit, the visit would go great. We would be playing, doing the thing. And then as soon as they would call that, 5-minute warning or whatever, hug your family, my kids would break down, and it would re-trigger that moment from that driveway. And so for me, I was locked up during COVID, and as fucked up as it is to say, during COVID lockdowns when visits were not allowed was actually a relief for me for having to relive that. It was very selfish. Yeah. But every visit, they would leave, and because it would always come out of nowhere, they'd be bouncing on my leg, playing, whatever. And then they'd go to, they call the time. I'd be walking back to the elevator. And, these are the moments where, the amount of time I was looking at in the beginning stages was like 262 months was like the first thing the feds threw at me. No violence, no co-defendants, no weapons, just an astronomical amount of time based exclusively on criminal history and the way they viewed me on paper. And so I remember coming down almost after every visit and being like, that moment between the transition from the guard stripping me out, taking me into the elevator, going down and walking back to the unit was the only amount of time that I was allowed to shed tears. And I had to not look like I had just been crying by the time I walked back into the unit as a, high level politic in the prison and all of that. And then come in there with a smile, like, I just had a good visit and everything's everything and everything's fine. But it wasn't. And I remember how hopeless my situation felt. I'd never been in the Fed, so it was learning a completely new legal system, new demographic of the court proceedings. I'd been in and out of the state and juvenile for a long time, so I was very familiar with legalese and how to advocate for myself. Getting locked up in the Feds was like getting locked up for the first time again. The whole experience was brand new. And the Feds, you could get sent all the way to New York and be from Washington. So there was all these different dynamics of incarceration. And it was the worst time that I ever did, but also the catalysm that created the seeds that I needed to start growing this. Like, I'm not doing this again. And actually instead of thinking about what I wasn't going to do, which is what I've always did in the past, like I'm not getting locked up again. I'm not doing this again. I don't want to come back. I started thinking about what I wanted to do. And that shift in thinking is kind of what got me to where I am today, because I started moving in the direction of what I wanted to see in my life in the future. And at the time it was if I got out, because I was making these changes under, the impression that I wasn't going to see any of my kids grow up. This was my this was it for me. I was going to get 10, 15, 20, whatever it was going to be. I wasn't even planning to get out. I was making these changes on like, how am I going to exist in here so that if and when I do ever get out, this won't even be a thing. And so I actually wrote my first curriculum while I was in there and implemented it in the units with guys. The reentry partnered with me to create it. And then, I kind of came home already having done at least 3 years of work before I came to the community. And then people started to see who I was later.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. It's interesting how that always kind of works out that way. It's like, if you're focused on what you don't want, you're going to get it. Right. Because you're thinking about it. Right. And I kind of look at like the universe gives you what you're looking for. Always. It always provides you with what you're looking for. And if what you're looking for is what you don't want, then you're going to get what you don't want because that's all you can see. All the other stuff is there. It's there and it's available, but you're not going to see it. And when you change your mind, when you change your mind and you say, well, I want this. Never mind what I don't want. Leave what I don't want. You got to leave that shit alone and like focus on what you do want. Then you start seeing what you want instead of seeing what you don't want. Like you could prove that to yourself, like on a normal day, you could say, well, I don't want to have a bad day today. I want to have a bad day. And then you run into the most asshole people on the road. Right. Especially in Seattle.
You start dropping stuff. You leave your keys in the car. So like all the things happen.
Fucking thing goes wrong. Right. But if you just like take a minute and go, you know what? I may have had a bad morning, but I'm going to have a good rest of the day. I want to get this done. I want to get that done. I want to go out there and do that. And then you go out there and do that. You don't experience all the other shit.
Yeah.
I get it. It.
We are what we agreed to.
Yep. Exactly. Well,
nobody can make you feel anything unless you agree to it.
Well,
that's from Princess Diaries.
No, thank you. I don't watch that. So you're watching that.
Yeah.
Hopelessness was introduced to my life very early. I'm a sexual abuse survivor. I've been molested by a family elder between the ages of 4 to 14 continuously. And when I was around 10 years old, I picked up the courage to tell my mother to help me, to stop what was going on. And she turned around and said to me, you got yourself into this mess. You got to get yourself out of this mess yourself. Because if I say any of this to your father, it would kill your father. We don't want anything happening to your father, right? At that moment, I believed her 100%, right? But something inside of me broke because I was a very sensitive, that believes everybody and, has this huge heart, loves to give hugs to everybody, likes to do nice things for everybody kind of child, right? And something broke in me at that point. And I believed her, and it was like, oh, this is going to go on forever. And I can't do anything about it because I'm being blackmailed by the person who was doing this, and if I didn't participate, I was going to be in trouble. If I went to dad, dad's going to die. I went to mom because I was all by myself. And I guess this is how it is in life, right? You're a female and you just have to live with it. It happens. It's normal, right? And then some of my peers tried to blackmail me into doing sexual acts while I was like in my teens, like 12 and 13. This shouldn't change. This is normal, right? This is how we live, right? There was no hope, nada, zilch. Right up until I started drinking and popping, pills, pharmaceuticals, towards able to get some sense of joy out of life, right? To get out of my reality. There were only two things in my reality. One was dancing, which that was my career choice, and I was in the conservatoire. And the other one was popping pills, drinking cough syrup, drinking whatever I could find to get out of my head. And just navigating every day, every kind of sexual encounter that comes across, right? I can't explain how that was so dark. And with the courage from the substances, I created another different persona. I was the kick-ass tomboy that rode crotch rockets and decided from now on, I'm going to be the ones who put the rules out there, and I'm going to, even if it kills me, I'm going to be the one who lives by their own rules, right? Just like you said, B, live or die, right? Adapt or, perish. And my abuser died when I was 14. And that was a revelation for me, that was awakening. This new persona take over my life. And then this persona was dictating everything that happens to this body from now on. And that made me kind of hopeful, but not really, because I didn't like that person. And nobody could see the real me underneath all of those layers, right? And the second time hope was totally diminished out of my life was when I had the accident and I, literally tarnished my legs. And that ended my career after 17 years of being in the studio for 10 hours a day, trying to become a good dancer, right? And I drank half a bottle of tequila and rode my crotch rocket. What do you think that was going to happen, right? I slammed myself to the wall and just fucked up everything in my life. And when I woke up at the hospital, the first thing I asked the doctor was, after 2 weeks of coma, the first thing I've asked the doctor was, so am I going to be able to dance again? I just started laughing, literally. And I was like, I'm going to kill this mother, just going to slam his head through that window in a minute. And he said, you'll be lucky if one of your legs aren't short and walk. And that was it. That was it. That was the second darkest. I had a way to deal with the first darkness, right? And now the second darkness on top of that. And I just said, all right, die or kill. From now on, that is my motto. I'm going to be one of those. I'm going to make myself so strong that nothing is going to get to me. And then this bitch just created itself, cold as ice, doesn't get affected by anything. And nobody knew what was behind all of that, except two of my friends, they knew me really well because I was okay towards them, but nobody else. Nobody else knew who I was. Right up until I got into recovery. And when I got into recovery, I was this close to dying, liver cirrhosis, at 25 years of age. And even the doctor said, "Oh, you really worked hard on this. You know, you never have a 25-year-old come here with this close to liver cirrhosis." And I said, "When I do something, I do it right." Okay? And I was already in a DT for about 4 days. Dinosaurs were walking in front of me. I was taking blood baths from the shower and stuff like that. You know, my mind was all so fucked up, right? And they had to tie me to the bed during my detox because I stabbed a nurse who was trying to give me an injection to calm me down. You know, I saw her as a witch coming towards me with a dagger. So
you were in a video game and they was trying to support you.
exactly. But
I love this woman. Oh, yeah.
when I was lying there, right, part of my mind was thinking, your best asset after all you lost is your mind. And now you've done it. You've lost that too.
Mm.
Right? And I'm telling you, if I got out of that DT half brain dead, probably I would have killed myself. It was that dark. And the detox and the 28-day program that I was in, I thought I did lose my mental capabilities. You know, the first month, you know, your like mind doesn't work or you're not there, right? You know, you sing the song from Taylor Swift, "Nothing's in my brain." Everything, yeah. So for me to learn to hope again, I don't know how I did it. I really don't know how I did it, you know?
Well, I'm glad you did.
Oh, I'm glad I did too, but it was one of the hardest things, you know? It was really hard. So what about you,
Jolly,
Emre? Oh
I
my
have a
God.
question for you.
Oh,
Because you're so focused all this time on the really crap stuff, right? And so
yeah.
I want to know, where is your hope at now? What keeps you going in your recovery now? Because I happen to know that after 30 years, you had a really hard anniversary. Okay. It was really hard. So where's your hope at now on a daily basis? What do you look forward to?
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Pull my pants down a little bit more, would you? So here we
Oh,
go.
no, I'd take your top off because you got great tits.
Anyway.
Classic.
Oh, yeah, that is so classic. By the way,
Husband and wife dynamics, man, is beautiful.
for anybody listening, he's my husband.
Yes.
Yeah. It's great.
So, they warned me of 30-year anniversary. And I always laughed at it, right? This year it was really hard because it was 30 years. And also, I've lost my uncle, right? And that was something that really hit below the belt, right? The only hope that I had that it was going to be okay after the anniversary date goes away, right, was the 30-year experience. It always happened. It relaxed. It got better, right? On that thing. I knew how to navigate the tools. I asked my family members to get rid of all of the alcohol in the house because, I mean, you drink, lady. I mean, you're not
Yes,
a,
I do.
yeah,
I do.
yeah, you have a drink every other day, every other month, one
Don't
drink.
say every day because that's not true.
No, that's not true. Every other month, I was going to say.
Yeah.
And so I don't mind if anybody else drinks around the house. But during anniversaries, I made it a habit of telling my loved ones to just get rid of the bottles. There's no need for extra stimulation, right? That helped. Talking about it helped. Sharing it helped. And knowing that it was going to pass helped with experience. So what makes me wake up every morning and hope? I could say I'm stubborn as a mule, as a personality. And
I can attest to that.
yeah. So I think my stubbornness with my spirituality, what I've learned over the course of years, it doesn't matter how dark it gets, tomorrow is a new day, and maybe you can do something different to get out of the dark and just, take a step into the white. And I actively rack my brain to find ways to go to the white. And it's very exhausting sometimes, yes. I mean, and it's really exhausting to watch me do that. Well, everybody's in the doom and gloom, and I'm like trying to really like claw my way to find the bloody light into that, right? And I could be really annoying while I'm doing that because, it doesn't fit anybody else's reality around me, right? So, yeah, I'm stubborn, and I'm first time in my life. I'm grateful that I'm stubborn because if I wasn't stubborn, I don't think I would be in recovery for 30 years. Waking up and doing this for 30 fucking years every morning. People don't understand how much of chore that is if
Mhm.
they're in recovery, you know? Oh, sometimes I had my doom and glooms, yeah. Sometimes I had guilt bring me down. Sometimes I had days that I couldn't see past my own darkness. And in those days, I hide in my shell.
Right.
I just close myself. And when it's time to get out, I claw myself out of it.
Mm.
How about you, Coach B, man? What's your way of what's your hope, daily hope? What gets you going every day?
As I sit here listening to it and I think about it, to me, the very foundation of hope is wanting for something better.
Right.
And so when I'm living in gratitude, I don't need hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the gratitude is the hope.
Because the gratitude is the destination that I hope for when I'm needing to be hopeful, right? Yeah. I'm hoping for better. When I'm living in gratitude, I'm living in better.
Yeah.
So hope doesn't really play a role in my day to day if I'm living in gratitude. If I wake up and I'm wanting, then I hope I can get back to gratitude.
Right.
So it kind of
wanting is a bad thing.
self-perpetuate. Yeah, to me, wanting when you have so much, I wouldn't say is a bad thing, but it's not a desirable place that I like to be. I don't like to look at my car and want a different one. I don't like to, think about my job and the first thought after I think about my job is, can I get a better one? I like to think, oh, it's almost 8 o'clock. I can't wait to go to work. Right. Because I'm in alignment with my assignment. So I'm not going to do work that I'm having to make compromises with internally just to go do.
Yeah.
I'm working in the field where it is already in alignment with my values and my being able to have that gratitude. So one of my secrets is to me, it's recent because I haven't been out as long as my last bid had me in. I haven't even broke even. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still relatively able to remember all the things I hoped for when I was on those 15-minute phone calls from the feds. And so that sometimes is my pool of put your fucking bootstraps, you know what I mean, and figure it out, because you could be on a jail phone right now
Yeah.
arguing with your wife, or not even arguing with her, but listening to her argue with the kids, wishing that those were your problems instead of the ones you have inside.
Yeah.
So that's where I kind of have a superpower of being closely associated with my recent lived experience with being incarcerated is, people that haven't had everything stripped from them from financial to spiritual to even your identity becomes your last name, or they call you inmate, which is dehumanizing, or they call you by a 6-digit number,
Right.
and control every aspect of your life. One, the most challenging realization was when I had to accept my collaboration in being in that space. Right. I
Mm-hmm.
participated, like I put myself there. Right. So to try to reconcile that with myself was a really deep internal battle as well, because it's like, I want to hate these guards and these judges and these police, but then it's like, but they exist with or without my participation. So if I'm in
Mm-hmm.
contact with them, if I'm in their grasp, it's because I agreed to do the thing. I collaborated,
Yeah.
and my behavior led me here. So once I made that realization, and I said this the other day on a podcast I was on, I will grant myself grace and say my aces, right? My aces score was not my fault, but today is my responsibility.
Yeah.
So that being said, like if I'm having a bad thought, we call them ants, right? If my ants are eating and feeding well, my automatic negative thoughts, then I have to hit them with the repellent of the data, right? Checking off all the things that are good in my life. So utilizing gratitude as a tool and a destination of where I want to start my day from is kind of where I guess you would say the hope lives for me, right? Because again,
Mm-hmm.
to live in gratitude means I'm not thinking about what I'm hoping for, because I'm content, I'm at peace, I'm good. I don't get full and then think about being hungry, right? Like if I'm hungry, that's hopeful. But if I'm in gratitude, then I'm full, I'm nourished.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore hope and gratitude don't, to me, exist at the same time. One
Right.
is hope for the other is the destination, and so I hope I landed and made a lot of sense with all that. I know sometimes
No,
we get
you
on
did.
tangents with our journeys because we're passionate about it.
Oh yeah.
But
So Emre, I haven't heard you talk for a long time.
Yeah,
Where's
you
Yeah.
where's your hope? Where's your hope every day? What gets you going every day?
To be frankly honest with you, I think my hope is coming from the times that I felt most hopeless when I was active addict. And I mean, I will just rewind a bit. You guys shared a lot of stuff from your experiences, and I would like to share a bit of mine. And I mean, I taught myself back then, I taught myself as an advantageous kid growing up. And I mean, as financially, of course, I wouldn't ask for more because I pretty much had everything that I could. But at the same time, till the age of 17 or 18, I grew up with sitters, My mom and my dad, like my both parents were working so hard. And so I have to be managing myself. I mean, of course, they were just trying to help me out, but mostly they were just working till the morning. My mom had a restaurant. My dad had a company about like heavy industry. So there were no working hours. It was unlimited working. And my dad was a pretty bad workaholic, I would say. And at the around of 17, I've lost a dear friend because of cancer. And that was one of the darkest times that I had in my life. And that's when I started abusing, which was specifically alcohol. And then it led one thing to another. And in all this meantime, till I get to a point of 17, uh, I was just trying to punish them with my education because that was the only thing that I have in my hands. And the funny side is, I don't know if this term is the same in English, but in Turkish, it's just I was a project kid. Even
Yeah.
even even before I born, my professional was set. The schools that I was going to attend was set. And even the year that like in around like 20 years, even the job that I was going to do was ready and taught even before I was a orange in the tree, you know. And so fast forward to that age again, around 17. So I sabotaged myself with my own education, and because that's all I had, like I said, and around that time, so kids just go to university, and I I was a smart kid, I would say, but I was lacking the education that I had to have. So I get to a point that I need to make a choice for the university. And I was just bouncing off the subjects that I can like study. But in my heart, deep in my heart, I always wanted to be a psychologist, but I always had an excuse for everything. And the excuse that I gave for myself not to be a psychologist was, if I'm going to be a psychologist, I need to be sure that I'm going to be the best. But this is nowhere near reality, you know. And I I was just using this excuse to keep sabotaging myself. And from that moment on, there wasn't any education for me. Oh, by the way, while being an active addict, maybe this is not a wise thing for me to say, but I graduated from psychology, but I never uh, practiced my professional. I haven't practiced being a therapist because against the peers that I had on psychology, I was too old for them because I've lost bunch of years with the schools and all the sabotaging. And at that point, I mean, in Turkey, you need to do army service. It's mandatory for everyone, every citizen. So when I graduated from university and done with the like the army service, the military service, sorry, I was around 30, not 30, but I was around 28, 29. And I kept telling myself, I'm not going to be a therapist. I don't want to do my family business. So I just do find a way to make money. And I was just trying every kind of job here and there. And while doing all of this, I kind of kept it out, but I need to put it in to be able to give the context. While doing all of this, I was just smoking. My main substance was cannabis, and I was smoking 4 to 5 grams of cannabis daily. And I mean, you can guess the rest where this lead me to. Uh, around mid-30s, I would say, because it's blurry. Before just heading on, I would like to add something else. Like I said, I always find knowledge valuable. Even though I sabotaged all the knowledge that I could get, I still valued it. And I really hold on to learning new stuff. And so I'm mid-30s. I'm smoking 5 grams of cannabis every day. And at some point, I was going to a psychiatrist and he said, well, you know what? You have substance-related psychosis. And I was like, what the fuck? Where did this come from? I mean, normally you smoke 5 grams of cannabis and you can't expect to be in psychosis, right? Yeah, anyway, so I think I always valued not just knowledge, but also at the same time doing mind exercises. I love to have the hold of it. But when you have psychosis, there is no exercise. There's nothing. So those were the times that I felt most hopeless. And now to your question, where do I get my hope from? And now I've been in recovery for more than 2 years. And normally when it comes to addiction, people don't like to use satisfaction, but I'm going to use it. So I'm pleased and satisfied at where I am, with where I am.
Mhm.
And when I turn back all those dark times and all the times that I feel hopeless, I get my power from that feeling. And the person that I've become and wanting to be a better person every day is where my hope comes from.
Yeah.
Seeking
Wow.
growth.
Yeah.
So it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
Seeking growth.
Exactly.
All right. Okay, everyone. I think we really nailed it, didn't we? I am so grateful that Coach B, Lee, and Emre for you guys to be here. And I hope we're able to influence someone when they listen to us, thinking that they're not alone, and thinking that they're not an island in the middle of the ocean. This is the only reason why we're doing these things. And the new wheel thing is something that we introduced on this new segment, and I love it. I think we should keep going. And if you're interested in joining our recovery talk, please get in touch with us. I would like to ask for one more thing from my participants. Coach B, do you allow us to put this segment online and share it on our social media?
Oh, absolutely. And verbal is binding. I wholeheartedly agree and allow you to post this on your social platforms, all the things. You have my blessing, my consent. It's all good.
Thank you. How about you, Lee? Do you give your consent to share it on our socials?
No, of course I do.
Okay. All right.
And by the
What
way, you are not alone.
Okay. And what about you, Emre? Do you?
Exactly. You can just share it everywhere. Just spread the word. Go for it.
Okay. So we would love to have you back, Coach B. And let's get to it. Till next time. Goodbye, everybody.